It is time for week 9 of the Big 12 football season. And I'll tell you what, I love my picks this week, not just straight up, but against the spread. I'm going to give you every game in the Big 12. I will give you a pick, a score, and then a prediction against the spread. Let's do it here on HeartlandCollegeSports.com. All I ask from you, before you get rich off these picks, is to subscribe right now to the channel. If you love college football, if you love the Big 12 in particular, or you just like making money on the picks, subscribe right now. Hit that button on the podcast and on YouTube and like the video as well. It helps us out a lot, and we are so grateful for you. This show just keeps growing this season. Every week we get more subscribers. That's because of you sharing the show. So thank you for being a part of it. All right, let's go through the games, and let's start off with the Sunflower Showdown. We've got K-State at KU this weekend, and K-State has won 16 in a row. And I will just get it right out of here. They're going to make it 17, okay? They're going to make it 17 because I believe that K-State realizes they need Avery Johnson to run the ball. They have tried to turn Avery Johnson into a pocket passer. He can throw the ball a little bit, but it's not how they're going to win games. It's not going to work like that. So they've got to realize that they need Avery Johnson, especially with Dylan Edwards likely out and likely missing the game. They need this guy to use his legs and use them effectively to win this game on the ground. And that is going to start on Saturday. They're fresh-legged. They're coming off the bye, and I think they will be able to take advantage of Kansas's defense, especially against the run, which is the worst in the Big 12. KU's given up 188 yards per game on the ground this season. That is 16th in the Big 12. Even without Dylan Edwards, K-State has got to be licking its chops. Whether it's Avery, whether it's Joe Jackson, Devon Rice, get them all in the mix. All right, use them all effectively on the ground and just get that game going. And you know what? Make KU stop you. Make KU force you to try to throw the ball. That's what I do here if I'm K-State. And while, yes, Jalen Daniels can be explosive, I actually think that the rest of this Kansas defense, outside of Jalen Daniels being healthy, is not as good as last year's team was in many respects. And I think we're learning that with each passing week. I question them in the trenches. We've seen some issues there against better opponents, and I believe we'll see that this Saturday against the Kansas State Wildcats. So KU wants to get to the quarterback. That's a big part of what they want to do to slow down K-State. But K-State, while they've had issues this season, Avery has not taken a lot of sacks. K-State has only allowed 6 sacks in 7 games. That is the second fewest in the Big 12 so far this season. So I am riding Kansas State in this game. I cannot believe that they are an underdog. I mean, it's basically a coin flip game because KU is favored here by 3 points at home, which is basically what you get. So this game on a neutral site would be a coin flip. It would be dead even. But K-State, you win 16 straight. This team is coming on, playing better, it feels like, every single week. They're opportunistic on defense as well, which has been a big part of their success in recent weeks, especially against TCU a couple of weeks back. Off the bye, hit the reset button, figure out what you're doing without Dylan Edwards. I think he's done for the year. That's my prediction. And K-State goes on the road to Lawrence, makes it 17 straight, and wins this game against KU 27-24. There is my Sunflower Showdown prediction for this weekend's matchup in Lawrence. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Make sure you are subscribed right now to the channel, and we appreciate you being here as always. We will now go to Ames, Iowa. We have BYU on the road taking on Iowa State. And BYU is off of that huge Holy War win. Is there a letdown game coming in Ames? That's the question. And my answer to that one is a big fat no. Not only because I think BYU is that good, but Iowa State is not the Iowa State team that we have come to know over the last several years under Matt Campbell and John Haycock on defense. Look at some of these numbers, okay, for Iowa State. Iowa State is 12th in the Big 12 in yards per carry allowed. They are 13th in third down defense. They are 13th in red zone defense. By the way, BYU is second. In a game that has field goals written all over it, am I going to take the team that really has struggled to stop the run, not good on third down, and isn't good in the red zone against BYU, where they just want to methodically move the ball down the field, right? That's what BYU does. They use that running game, LJ Martin, Bear Bachmeier. They just want to keep this thing churning and then maybe crack a big play here or there. And they can do it. We saw that last week. We've seen it all season long, right? So I'm looking at the game and I'm like, this is not the Iowa State defense that we've been accustomed to. And we've talked about it, especially during their last couple of losses. And now they take on BYU, who might have a bit of a hangover. Yeah, that's entirely possible based on how that game went last week. Iowa State's coming off a bye. That definitely does concern me. But then I've got to pull it back and I've got to say, what are these two teams? And BYU deserves that respect from me. And I think, anyone betting this game or looking at this game to say, unless you're just looking at those optics of Iowa State at home, off the bye week, maybe getting a little healthy, although a lot of their injuries were not like just nagging injuries, right? The secondary's decimated, and it's not been good. Unless you think some of those replacement pieces just figured it out during the bye week, there's really not a lot to like about why Iowa State can go out there and win this game. Once again, unless you're just playing the game of off the bye week, opponent off an emotional rivalry win, which, don't get me wrong, that might be enough in college football. I'm just not there. I'm not. Because I'm actually watching these two teams over the last several weeks, and I'm seeing one team that continues to get better and get more confident by the week. That's BYU. And it's just a beast in the trenches. And then I'm getting Iowa State that has regressed over the last few weeks and has gotten more injured as well over the last few weeks. The bye week doesn't fix that. And while BYU may come out a little slow, they're undefeated. Okay? It's not like they beat a rival and now they're 3-4. They're 7-0. There is so much to play for. They cannot let that foot off the gas pedal right now. If you're BYU, you just can't do it. And BYU obviously wants to win this game on the ground. And they have been very good, obviously, doing that so far this season. They are right now a top 5 in the Big 12 in rushing yards per game. So they like to do it. They do it very effectively. And there's no doubt in my mind they'll be able to have their way with this Iowa State defense that is 12th in the Big 12 against the run when you look at yards per carry. It has not been a great year on that side of the ball, and it's actually gotten worse as the season has progressed. So I am going to roll with BYU winning this game 24-20 over Iowa State. They're a 3-point underdog, so that would obviously give them a cover. And BYU is 5-2 against the spread this season. Iowa State is only 3-3. So Iowa State came in getting more love against the number from just the sports bettors in general. They have not, for the most part, lived up to expectations. BYU keeps exceeding them. I'll take the underdog +3, and I'll take them to win the game outright. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. If you're watching us, please make sure that you are subscribed right now to the channel. We appreciate you being here, as always, as a part of this show, heartlandcollegesports.com. We will travel to Lubbock, Texas, and talk about Texas Tech and Ohio, not Ohio State. We're going to talk Texas Tech versus Oklahoma State. There are two OSUs. One is in the national championship conversation. The other one, well, they couldn't be further from the national championship game if they tried. That's the Cowboys. Pushing 2 years since they've won a Big 12 conference game. Who would have ever predicted this 18 months ago? But here we are. So Texas Tech is a 38.5-point favorite. Throw the numbers out the window, okay? There's nothing to analyze numbers-wise in this game. It's just simply whether or not you think that Texas Tech is going to go out there and cover the 38.5. I don't believe that they will, and let me explain why. It's not because they can, but Baron Morton is questionable at this point when we're having this conversation. They're starting quarterback. Will Hammond got a lot better as the game progressed. His fourth quarter last week against Utah was tremendous, but Arizona State was able to slow him down in that first half. I'm not suggesting Oklahoma State's going to be able to do that at all, but I think that Tech's just going to be like, let's get into this game. Let's get the win. If we can pull our starters in the second half, we'll do it and just coast to a victory. I believe that's where Texas Tech mindset is at. That's where it should be at going into this game. And you look at it too, I mean, Skylar Gill-Howard being out on the defensive line for the rest of the season after undergoing ankle surgery was talked a lot about last week. We talked about it, but it probably didn't even get the attention that it deserved. You did see that defense not quite look the same last week at times against Arizona State, which, yes, has arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12 in Sam Leavitt, but still, that is a huge loss on the D-line. And not that Oklahoma State's going to take advantage of it. It's not. But if we're talking about a couple points here, a couple points there, it could make a difference, right? 38.5-point spread. And then I just come back to this for Oklahoma State. Does this team have any pride? They're losing these games by 30, 40 points consistently. Can Doug Meacham get any pride out of these guys? I posted a video on our X account at Heartland_CS last week, and it was of, number 32 for the Cowboys, Mordecai. Just give up on a touchdown run by Cincinnati. Just totally give up. It got tens of thousands of views. A lot of Oklahoma State folks saw it. If nothing else, you got to have pride. You got to try. And I do believe the effort is going to be there more so this week because last week was an embarrassment for the Cowboys. Doesn't mean they're going to win or even be competitive in the game. But covering 38.5, yeah, I'll roll the dice on that one. And it is possible that Zane Flores is back for the game at quarterback. That would be a good thing. Sam Jackson's not it. But if you go to Sam Jackson, maybe he's finally getting comfortable. I don't know. But I see Texas Tech just cruising to this victory, 45-13. I'll take the Cowboys plus the 38.5. Maybe that's dumb. Maybe it ends up being 52-7. I don't know. I just know this much. At 38.5 in a conference game, with what Texas Tech has to be thinking about right now, which is just get out of the game, probably with our backup quarterback and stay healthy, I'll roll the dice. Plus 38.5. What could go wrong? Jeez. 45-13 Red Raiders. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We appreciate you being here, as always, as a part of this show. We will roll along here. Where are we going next? Baylor, Cincinnati. The game is in Cincinnati. Baylor is off the loss to TCU. Cincinnati coming off that win over Oklahoma State. And, I think Cincinnati's getting disrespected here in this game. They're a 4-point favorite over the Baylor Bears. And I'm just looking at the game and I'm saying the line of scrimmage is all Cincinnati in this thing. All Cincinnati. Did you know that Cincinnati is number one in the Big 12 in yards per carry? Now, they're not a team that's going to run the ball as much as a Utah, as a BYU, as an Arizona State, as a West Virginia. But when they do run the ball, they're pretty effective at doing it. That is number one in the Big 12, 6 yards per carry. Evan Pryor is a guy that I really like at running back for the Bearcats. And, he's been underrated so far this year. They're just good at it. And if there's ever a time when they're going to pop, it's this game. Baylor cannot stop the run to save its life. Kavorian Barnes is a nice player for TCU. And he was getting better after missing a couple of games due to injury last week. Guy looked like Barry Sanders out there against Baylor. But Baylor's defense does that to a lot of people. They're fourth worst in the Big 12 in rushing yards allowed per game. They don't stop anybody. third worst actually in rushing yards allowed per game. And if there's a time when Cincinnati's going to just hammer it at home, it's going to be in this game against a Baylor run defense that just can't figure it out to save its life. Combine that with Brendan Sorsby and that offensive attack that has been very good and highly underrated and is the most explosive passing offense in the Big 12, averaging 9.6 yards per pass. That is tops in the league against a Baylor team that is bottom half in the league in passing yards allowed per game. So sign me up for that Cincinnati offense. Now, defensively, Cincinnati is not going to blow you away. All right, that's just not what they're going to do. It is a bend but don't break defense. It's cliche, but that's what it is for Cincinnati. And so far, it's worked pretty darn well. And maybe there comes a point here where you look at this Baylor offense and Sawyer Robertson says, fine, I got to score 49 points to win a game. I guess I'll go ahead and just do it. Maybe you say this is the game that happens against a Cincinnati defense that hasn't been amazing, but understands what it needs to do. Maybe you're of that belief. I don't think that's happening this week. I just don't think Baylor's all that good. And even the offense, the rushing game has not been there with Bryson Washington like I thought it was going to be. So I'm looking at the game and I'm saying to myself, you know what? What's not to like about Cincinnati right now? Baylor is 1-6 against the spread this season. I think they're still getting way too much love from Vegas. I don't know why they're getting as much love as they're getting from Vegas, but it's way too much for me. Baylor has not earned that on the field. Going on the road after the way they looked against TCU last week, where really they were out of the game after that, second or third lightning delay. They were down 3 touchdowns. They scored a couple of touchdowns at the end. I mean, TCU didn't do itself any favors there, but that's a different story. Cincinnati deserves more than being a 4-point favorite here. So I'm rolling with Cincinnati winning this game. It'll be high scoring. Baylor will probably get a late touchdown to make it look respectable. But I'm going to go Bearcats 38, Baylor 31. Cincinnati covers the 4-point spread. There you have it on Heartland College Sports. I'm Pete Mundo. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Let's go to West Virginia hosting TCU. The Mountaineers are licking their wounds off of a bad loss at UCF, losing by 30. Of course, TCU beat Baylor, as we just noted, last week at home. And I don't see any way that West Virginia can slow down TCU in the passing game. I mean, if you can figure out a way to make it happen, let me know. But the Mountaineers have given up 8.2 yards of completion. That's second worst in the Big 12, behind only Oklahoma State. Meantime, you got a TCU team that is third in the Big 12 in pass yards per completion, second in the Big 12 in passing yards per game. West Virginia's got the third worst defensive efficiency in the Big 12. TCU, the third most efficient offense in the Big 12. This is not stacking up well for the Mountaineers at all. And I looked up the weather just in case. I'm like, hey, is this going to be an ugly game? We getting rain? Maybe that slows this thing down. Nah, 55 sunny, 5-mile-per-hour winds. That's a passing football day is what that is in Morgantown. And West Virginia just can't stop the passing attack at all. They have no ability to do it. And on the other side, if there was ever going to be an opportunity for West Virginia to take advantage, it would be against a TCU pass defense that also has not been great, giving up the second most passing yards of any team thus far in the Big 12, behind only Oklahoma State in yards per game through the air. Problem is, West Virginia can't pass the ball to save its life. The Mountaineers are dead last in the Big 12, 158 passing yards per game. They can't take advantage of TCU's biggest weakness. And what West Virginia wants to do is run the ball, right? That's what they want to do. That's the name of their game. Well, TCU has been surprisingly good against the run so far this season. Top 5 in the Big 12 in rushing yards allowed per game. And when it comes to yards per carry, they are third in the Big 12, giving up only 3.5 yards per carry. So TCU's strength on defense plays in the West Virginia strength, and West Virginia is not capable of taking advantage of TCU's defensive weakness. This thing sets up for the Horned Frogs to have a big game and a big win. And I'm going to roll with TCU winning this game 35-17 over the Mountaineers and covering a 15-point spread. This is just a different year for the Big 12. There are some really bad teams in the Big 12 this year. West Virginia is one of them. Oklahoma State's the other one. That is just a really bad football team. There are some that are getting better near the bottom of the standings, which, we'll talk about here coming up. But those two teams in particular are just bad. And as much as I want to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a possibility. They're at home. Morgantown's great. Love watching a game there. Fans are going to be into it. There's no reason to like West Virginia at all on Saturday. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Always glad that you're here as a part of the show. Let's roll to Tempe. Great game last week for Arizona State, upsetting Texas Tech at home. They are playing the Houston Cougars. This is a big-time game in the Big 12 standings. Who would have thought this was the case back in August? But here we are talking about this one. And while Arizona State looked like the defending Big 12 champs, they've got their hands full against a Houston team that is being disrespected as a 7-point underdog in this game. So, first off, Jordan Tyson is not going to be playing for the Sun Devils. Star wide receiver, likely first-round pick in the NFL draft next year. If you look at some of the mock drafts, he pulled up lame with that hamstring against Tech last week. He fought through it, and he needed to fight through it. They won the game because of him in large part, but he's not playing this week. That is Sam Levitt's, obviously, not just his safety blanket. That's his big-time, big-play wide receiver, and that is a huge loss for Arizona State. And I'm looking at this Arizona State defense, which has been really good this year, especially on that defensive line. I like them a lot. They're going to have to win this game against Connor Wigman and the Houston Cougars. Sam Levitt, I think, will do enough. Raleek Brown at running back will be there. But Houston's D has been pretty darn solid this season, not getting enough credit. They're second in the Big 12 in yards per carry allowed and rushing yards per game allowed. That's how good Houston has been at stopping the run, which means Sam Levitt's going to have to find some target downfield because Jordan Tyson's not going to be there. I think this is playing pretty well for Houston. They're off the walk-off win last week against Arizona. They go to Tempe. Not that there's a hangover effect here for Arizona State, but man, that was so big last week to beat Texas Tech. And I know all week they're talking about it in Tempe, and they're like, no hangover, no hangover, no hangover. We see it all the time. And I said earlier in the show, I don't think that BYU is going to have a hangover from its big win against Utah. I'd be more concerned about Arizona State having a hangover game simply because of the pieces that they're missing. And the fact that, they had the field storming last week and everything else that comes along with that. It was such an emotional game. Now, BYU, Utah, they play each other, right? Like they, as much as that's a big rivalry, they play each other. They're kind of used to that. This was next level in Tempe last week. And the thing that came along with Texas Tech getting all the accolades, all the love, undefeated, college football playoff bound, everybody was singing their praises. And Arizona State said, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. There was just a lot more, I think, that went into that emotionally for Arizona State than BYU's win over Utah, which is why I'm more concerned about a hangover for the Sun Devils than I am for the Cougars going into this week. And I mean the BYU Cougars, not the Houston Cougars. But what I want to see from Houston is a team that utilizes the legs of quarterback Connor Wigman. We saw him run for 80-some-odd yards last week against Arizona. First time he really broke it out with the running game since they played Colorado. I think he'll have opportunities against Arizona State. Will Hammond led the team in rushing last week for Texas Tech. Now, they weren't great when it comes to the running game last week, but still, quarterbacks have had opportunities. in the running game at times against Arizona State. So, and it gives that offense something that I think it needs with Houston. It gives it that look that I think at times it doesn't have if Wigman's not trying to run the ball. Keep him honest. So I want to see that from Connor Wigman going into this game. And I think that sets up Houston to be in a good spot offensively, slow the game down a hair, and then do what they've done effectively on the defensive side of the ball, which is slow down the run. And when it comes to the pass, it's more of a bend but don't break mentality. But it's worked for them so far this year in the Big 12. And I believe you'll see that on Saturday in this game. But it's home. It's Sam Levitt. I can't bet against him. Well, I can bet against him against the spread. I can't bet against him straight up. I will take Houston plus the 7 points in this game, and I will take Arizona State to win 24-23. It will be a really good game in Tempe. Houston is 5-2 against the spread. They'll get another cover, but I think they'll come up 1 point short on Saturday against the Sun Devils. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Glad you're here. Subscribe to the channel. As always, we are grateful for your time. We are going to wrap it up with our Big 12 previews and predictions this week with Colorado on the road against the Utah Utes, who are coming off, of course, that loss to BYU. And for Utah, this is about getting that running game going. Colorado's off a bye week. They've been getting better. I really think that defensive line has been improving. Do I think it's going to improve enough to slow down Utah's running attack? No, I don't. Colorado's got the second worst run defense in the Big 12. Utah is top 3 in the Big 12 in rushing attack. It's as simple as that. And I do wonder whether or not Devin Dampier can be a guy who can win at a very high level in this league based on what we've seen against Texas Tech and what we've seen against BYU. But he's the kind of guy who can put up big numbers against lesser competition. And then you hope can do enough to win you big games. And this feels like one of those games where they may start off slow with how last week went, and Colorado's coming off a bye week, but Colorado also is not nearly as good on the road as they are at home. That's something that we've been learning early in the season. So Utah's going to win the game. The rushing attack will carry them to a victory. I do think that Colorado, though, is getting better with each passing week, getting more confident as well, especially at the quarterback spot with Caden Salter. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Colorado in this game. And Utah, if you look at, what they've done, obviously their defense has been awesome. But if Caden Salter can get a couple of big plays down the field, get a little confidence going early in this game, then Colorado might be able to hang around for longer than people think. And I'm not going to predict them to win this game on the road. I don't believe that's going to happen. But I believe it can be closer than people are projecting as we sit here and have the conversation right now. So at this point, I'm going Utah with the win, 31-21 over the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado covers that 14.5-point spread on the road. Utah, coming off of last week, just gets out of there with a win at home after the big rivalry game last week and just moves on with the season. But I don't see this one being some big, dominant, 42-10 kind of a game like they had against Arizona State a couple of weeks back. I'll go Utah 31-21 and Colorado covering the spread. I'm Pete Mundo. We're Heartland College Sports. Grateful that you joined us. Let's make some money this week. I like all of those picks. 7, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 7 games this week. I like all of those picks against the spread. I'm just throwing them all into one bucket and saying you do with those picks what you want. You see what you like, you check your data, you compare with mine, and come to your own conclusion. All right, that's what I always say. Come to your own conclusion. As Dave Ramsey says, the advice is worth what you paid for it, which is nothing. All of our stuff is free. The only thing we ask of you is to subscribe right now to the channel at Heartland College Sports. We cover the Big 12. We're glad that you are here as always. And we'll talk to you for the reaction show coming up this weekend, week 9. That's the other reason you want to be here. We'll talk to you then at heartlandcollegesports.com. See you later.